You're listening to Tomorrow on Track, a podcast by PwC Malaysia. In each episode, we explore the human experiences behind today's business challenges, helping you build trust with those that matter most. Today's episode is a recording of a panel discussion at the launch of the Corporate Directors Survey 2024. In the first of a two-part series, we hear from Dr Ismet Yusoff, CEO of the Minority Shareholders Watch Group, Datin Seri Sunita Rajakumar, Chair and Director of Climate Governance Malaysia, and Tuan, Group MD and Group CEO of FarmFresh. Moderated by Marina Che Mokhtar, partner at PwC Malaysia, they share insights on the challenges that board members and C-suites are facing in the boardroom today.
We have had a very interesting finding in terms of what do boards face today in the four different aspects. So the panel session title is, how do we unpack this false dilemma of purpose versus profit? We are always under pressure to deliver financial value. And boards are now having more pressure to become the stewards of sustainability, diversity, responsible AI, and a lot more. I think I was just learning about generative AI. We had lots of training, and last night I was reading about a new thing that's coming up, agentic AI. So we're constantly playing catch up. And I think that is where diversity of thought that Raj mentioned is very important because we need that cognitive and technical expertise. The survey results also show that the paradigm shift is gaining momentum. We're not only just getting pressure from the management. We have our different stakeholders, our investors, our employees, our policymakers, and it's very important to balance and distinguish between the interests of the shareholders and stakeholders, but more importantly, how do we integrate them? So without further ado, maybe just to sort of kickstart this panel discussion, corporate directors today have a growing list of both fiduciary and statutory duties to fulfill, safeguarding the interests of shareholders, upholding ethical standards, championing sustainable practices. But I think based on your personal experiences, what have been the biggest challenge that you face in the boardroom?
Thank you, Marina, and thank you, PwC, for inviting me. I think just a quick introduction of MSWG first. What we do is that we are technically investors, activists, where we represent the voice of minority shareholders, and technically what we do is that we are shareholder of about 500 listed companies. That's 50% of the companies listed on Bursa. So we attend EGMs and we raise questions on the company's financial, operational, governance, and sustainability. So throughout our observation, like most companies in Malaysia, I think they are still trying to come out from the impact of pandemic, whether we like it or not. That is still a concern in most of the companies that we look at, particularly those smaller listed companies. And then this impact is real. It's through trying to figure out how to replenish back their cash and try to manage their order book, trying to manage their whole entire supply chain and the whole entire parts of the ecosystem. But the thing is that it is no longer just the traditional issues that we are looking on and looking at. I think there are still a lot of other new concerns and issues that has arisen. Like I mentioned just now, the impact of pandemic, the virus is not just about COVID-19 and things are pretty much stable. There are new mutated viruses that are coming up. There is an import ban on the cows that they are bringing in because of the bird flu viruses ongoing currently that impacted the whole entire supply chain and ecosystem for them. There's also issues on economic trade wars and also economic uncertainties. There are companies that is benefiting a lot from your exchange rate uncertainties, but you have companies in north part of Malaysia who's actually struggling because most of their contract in USD. So whenever Malaysian ringgit is strengthening, technically they are losing. So all these factors are changing and evolving so rapidly, and I think these are keeping the directors technically wake up and cannot sleep at night. But all of this, I think, is something that we need to continue looking at, and I think this is something that definitely MSWG is looking at too.
Thank you. I think there's something that we didn't really touch upon, but it's constantly there, and it's now becoming more important. Some of these geopolitical impacts, not just to the country, but to the respective companies.
Thank you, Marina, and thanks so much to PwC for having me here. If I can summarize two of the biggest challenges I think that we're seeing: emerging risks and lack of critical thinking skills. So directors are really a fiduciary, and they need to carefully manage this partner-guardian tension. You want to be a partner to the business, but you also need to ensure that you're a guardian or a steward to the assets of the business. But with a rapidly increasing complex background against which business operates, and remember, you're really having to manage these risks, isn't it? Because you're a successful business only because there is risk. And risk is correlated with return. The better you manage the risk, the better the returns that you're having. But when you have multiple emerging risks, and we've discussed this morning, climate and AI, how are you going to best manage this? And so, I've seen in recent times incidences of, for example, a software developer, which is a third-party contractor, uploading confidential information to ChatGPT to help with coding. I've also seen an instance where companies don't use shadow pricing to manage their transition risks. As we know, EU, UK has already seen $100 carbon. There's not many businesses that will be able to pivot away from that. So how are you managing these sort of transition risks? 2009 Asian financial crisis was widely viewed as a failure of governance. And this comes back to reporting and disclosure. So how are we managing this risk, especially as we're now being asked to make forward-looking statements? And I'm not sure if safe harbor provisions will be able to protect you from statements which in a few years' time everyone will think, well, they should have realized, they should have known, they should not have made statements like this. So I want to give you also two examples of critical thinking skills, which I feel is lacking in many boardrooms. I think this is a challenge that we really are facing right now. So take a net zero strategy. A lot of businesses are still saying net zero 2050. You want to follow what the IPCC is saying. But do we know what that means? Net zero emissions by 2050 is to limit warming to 2 degrees by the end of the century, by 2100, and to keep pathways open to 1.5 degrees of warming. But what if I were to tell you, and this is publicly available information, chances are the child or teenager in your household already knows this, that last year we hit 1.5 degrees of warming. Now, of course, this is not a long-term 20, 30-year plan, but if you're still planning for net zero by 2050, you can't in a few years' time, when your name, your company, your boardroom is on the front page of The Edge, be able to use as a coherent defense that, oh, I didn't realize, I didn't know, I didn't think, right? So that's one example of critical thinking skills. And another one, which Datuk Faiz referred to, is indirect physical risks. You might have a really robust net zero strategy, but, for example, your substation is protected from extreme events, but if the roads are impassable, if your staff can't come into work, if we have no food security, and if there's already hyperinflation of medical supplies, despite your robust net zero strategy, your business will be on its knees. And again, the boardroom is the steward, is the guardian of the organization. So it'll be very difficult to mount a plausible defense by saying, I didn't realize, I didn't know, and so on. So I feel these are the two areas where boardrooms are really being challenged right now.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I think for me, I'm coming from, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, I think probably my view will be a bit different because I need to wear a few hats. First, I have the shareholders' interest that I need to take care. But I think in essence, for me, I think as a CEO of Farm Fresh, I think I truly believe, you want to do well by doing good. So I think that is a very basic, you have to come from your heart, that the thing that you wanted to do, you always have to think, that is it the right thing to do or not. I think if you don't move very far from there, you can't get it very, very wrong. Yeah.
I think that's interesting to hear your thoughts as well, because you grow the company from start. And we talk about shareholders' interest, stakeholder interest. And in your point of view, what does purpose mean in your own company? And how does it relate to profit?
Yeah, I think for me, I think when we set out to do this business, right, fresh milk business, which is very, very basic product, that nourish the human beings and things like that. So it is very simple. It's so traditional, so old-fashioned business that, it's so easy to understand, right? We are not in the tech, we are not in something that, super science that you need to get very complicated. So I think over the years, when we get into this business, we were figuring out that, there is a gap, right? In business model, how you identify opportunities and what's not. So here you are. There is a gap in the market that fresh milk was very lacking in Malaysia. So we go into that. Now, I think using that basic fundamental value that we have, our core value to ensure that, that how we evolve over the years from fresh, that we really want to be truly as natural as we can be in terms of food, to make sure that, all this food, that we provide. So, and when you grow, and when our customers start to appreciate this, and we grow year after years and after years, we realize that value, we can't depart from that value. So that purpose of, getting, make sure that the product that you provide, your customer that supported you for years to bring us where we are today, we just have to hold that value, right? Now, so the profit part of it, I think, is very natural. Sometimes business competition are such that, when you have competition and when you lose market share or you couldn't grow, for example. So naturally, I think many companies resort to reduce the cost, right? You want to reduce the cost, reduce the price to make you competitive. But this is food, This is a food. Besides efficiency and some equipments that you invest, with the speed and things like that, optimization on your operation, you can't bring down much of your cost anymore. So if you want to bring down the cost, you have to reduce the ingredient, right? You have to compromise your ingredient. Now, doing that, you probably be able to reduce your costs, right? And then you can undercut competition, you can sell cheaper. But then again, it's very basic common sense. The food quality will be compromised, right? Whether in protein form or in cream form or whatever it is. So anything that you take out, you make it cheaper. If you do that, and the customer will realize that, hey, hey, how come the susu become like that? Hey, how come the product become like that? And things like over a period of time, you will start to lose customer. So I think we have demonstrated our company in a sense that over the years, we never try to reduce our product quality, but we still grow and grow. And I think at the quantum that we grow, right, to maintain 20, I remember years ago when we were doing 50 million, 100 million business, when you grow 50%, wow, 50% growth in a single year, right? But 100 million, you grow 50%, it's only 50 million. So it's kind of manageable, right? And when you're at the base of 800 or 1 billion, when you go 20%, like what we did last year, there is a 200 over million growth in one single year. So everything extrapolated. And I think to get the team aligned, everything, it is very important. So I think, why are we still growing and why are we still improve the margin without actually have to cut corner, right?
Yeah, I think there's also one specific program that I'm personally quite inspired by is how you work with micro entrepreneurs in the rural areas, because it doesn't just help you promote your own product, reach to the rural areas about milk, but you create income and more entrepreneurs, especially women in these areas. Yeah.
But I think most of the event that I go when come to ESG sustainability, everybody just talk about environment. Of course, environment is important, climate change. No one is more affected, a farmer like us, when the climate change. But I think the social impact is also very important. I think the way we felt that when we built our company, Azmi and I used to think that, that first, you do not want to be a problem to your communities, right? Your waste discharge and all these sort of things, smelly lah, macam-macam. But then the other thing is that, along our value chain, we also created a lot of micro entrepreneurs, and majority of them are women, right? So how you can impact your communities, the people around you, that, they become part of your, And it doesn't, they don't have to rely on BRIM every day, dish out 500 ringgit, 500. They can create their own business, very honest business, a housewife, make a living out of it. So we are very proud that, we can also from the social impact, which I think more often than not, most of these events that I go, I think we don't really emphasize much on the social impact. Yeah.
And that concludes part 1 of this 2-part series. This episode is a recording of a panel discussion that took place during the launch of PwC's Corporate Director Survey 2024. Tomorrow on Track is a podcast by PwC Malaysia. Follow PwC Malaysia on LinkedIn or visit pwc.com/my/ontrack for more episodes.